Monday, June 28th. Last week we had smoky days where the mountains were obscured. Then we had clear days that the mountains were gorgeous and the sky was cloudless blue. Before we begin, I must apologize that in past videos, several of my pictures have been cropped pretty drastically. I need to figure out with Dr. Jackson where the problem is, because that's not how I submitted them. Once the courtyard of Mikasa had been leveled with the little cat, the surveyors returned. They worked for the better part of the morning, and when they were finished, there were many orange steaks. When they were finished, it looked a little haphazard. We're still not sure what they are surveying for. Below my balcony, the tailgate of a pickup makes a very good substitute desk to unroll the plans. One morning, Little Cat spent time bringing loads of fine gravel to mix in with a load of dirt. Later, Little Cat loaded the mixture into the scoop of the big cat, and it was distributed up and down the south side to accomplish the rest of the road prep. One afternoon, it was very exciting to hear noise below my balcony. The landscapers were taming the strip. This worker even went inside the patios on the lower level and blew out all the thrash so it could be raked up and taken away. One day, I heard a racket by door 3, and I saw a pickup with a trailer covered in tree branches. Peering through the fence at door 3, I discovered these two workers had taken down the pine tree that sat next to the fire hydrant. It would have been in the way of the asphalt as well. These workers were having a hard time getting those branches to stay up on the flatbed. I'm glad he had a helmet on. Another day, Brightview Landscaping was capping off one pipe and realigning it so the tree remaining would have water. It took them most of an afternoon to get rid of the tree stump and the roots that went out to where asphalt was going to be laid. Walking up the street on the south side last week, I saw a lot of preparation getting ready to pour curbs and gutters. Little Cat is constantly moving dirt from one place to another or changing the level of the road. Up close, I watched as these 3 workers created curbs and gutters from just lumpy concrete. This worker did the final finessing to create smooth surfaces and expansion joints. The crew worked steadily through the day until curbs and gutters proceeded east toward the new atrium. I was very surprised when I saw them pour new parking spaces on the south side of the AL building in concrete instead of in asphalt. Oliver explained that the slope from the building to the road was too shallow in some places to do adequate prep to install asphalt. Just a day later, the parking spaces were light gray, but still needed some curing. Concrete trucks returned, but this time they were pouring sidewalks running along the south side of the AL building toward the new atrium. This area will be additional parking spaces for visitors and family directly across from the new atrium entrance. As I walked up toward Alta Vista, this raven gave me a mouthful of guff. Like, how dare I walk on his sidewalk? He kept following me as I passed, and I wasn't sure if he was going to fly after me to give me more trouble, but he just watched with that evil eye, chattering the whole time. Looking over the railing from Alta Vista, I saw this worker cleaning out the concrete truck into that metal bin. I'm not sure I want a job that means you have to hammer it to get it clean. As he pulled away, there was a mini traffic jam. These happen all the time on the site. On the south side of the IL building, my crew is putting up the white insulation. I sure miss talking to them. Next day, they had framed the windows with the gray undercoat and around all the metal vents. Day after that, they were starting to spray the gray undercoat on that west corner. Standing on the casita wall, I saw that they were installing more windows on the north side atrium. Still have to have an opening for supplies. Asphalt has been completed to join the south and north sides of the IL building. I watched as Big Cat brought in 4 loads of dirt and made this small well. I thought maybe it was for when they get ready to plant trees. Then they spread a tarp over it, and I was confused. Maybe they didn't want it to blow away, or maybe they didn't want it to wash away. A few days later, I found out that this was a temporary collection of pond scum. Anything on the construction site that needed to be hauled off. With all the new asphalt, there's no place to put it. Later, the pink truck arrived and dumped several loads of sand. They had put a big tarp down and were setting up a temporary gypcrete station. It will take several days to install the Acoustomat and fill the rooms with gypcrete. They have more floors than the AL building. SkyTrack delivers load after load of scaffolding. It climbs higher and higher. Pretty soon this side will be white. Even with the narrow opening, SkyTrack stays busy delivering loads of what looks like flooring. On Father's Day weekend during the car show, we brought Hawk up to the front lobby of LVL and let residents get on and get their pictures taken. Hooper's daughter and grandson had a blast. They kept laughing. Hawk thought they were a lot of fun. Hooper's oldest grandson had a sweet girlfriend, and they had the longest legs. He thought Kais had the snazziest hat and would be really comfortable in hot weather. Stephanie and Dave made the toughest looking bikers. Hawk thought it was very romantic that Julie and Frank are getting married, but he thought Zach should have been able to fit up there on the back of the seat too. We think Mary Floyd was our oldest rider, and Hawk was very impressed with how easily she got on and off the scooter. Hawk seemed to have gotten over the wanting to be big and have lots of chrome, but then he saw David's motorcycle, and now he wants to be big with chrome and blue.
Good morning from Independent Living. One of the first things you'll notice this week is the flat light due to the overcast. It makes it much easier to see what's going on. Unfortunately, there's not much new going on. There's no white insulation on this side. There's a little more scaffolding than last week. The gypsum crete mixer is gone, but unfortunately their holding pond is still here. And of course, there are still 3 little rubber duckies. It's Wednesday, June 30th. It's 9:30 in the morning. It's 65 degrees and it's overcast and drizzling. Here on the east end, again, there's not much new. There's no white insulation on this end yet. It might be cleaned up a little from last week, not sure. Can't tell what those guys on the top left there are doing. And now as we come around to the south side, we can see that they've pretty much finished the base coat, all but the lowest level. And they're still working on the upper levels on touch-up and so forth. Did you notice whether the hatch was open? And look, the broom is there, but it's been moved. That Blockmonster must have been out on an adventure of some kind. Anyway, we now come around the west end. We can see that nothing much has happened there. We still have the patch on the upper right-hand corner, and the moose tracks are still on the roof. There's no word from Ingenuity this week, and there's no word from the Coyotes. Over at CNM, they've taken down the signs warning against them, so I think they're gone for now. This week, again, we think about spin in baseball. Ruffles have ridges. So do fastballs. Or rather, they have seams or ridges on the surface. They are like paddles on a stern wheeler. They drive the ball with spin. You may have thought that baseball was about hitting and fielding and running and catching, but that's only half of it. The rest is about grip and seams and spin and airflow. Oh, and malarkey and horse feathers and poppycock. Let's start with the most frequent and easiest pitch. Fastballs, about 60% of pitches in baseball. The most basic, the 4-seam fastball, which accounts for 2/3 of all fastballs, is gripped as shown to show as many seams as possible, that is 4, to the airstream. It is thrown directly overhand as fast as possible, and the index and middle fingers are whipped downward on release to impart as much backspin as possible, resulting in an apparent rising behavior at 95 miles per hour. In its purest form, this pitch is pure backspin, causing pure vertical movement. A nice, simple, easy to explain pitch. It's so easy that it is the throw that is taught to infields when throwing between bases. The second most important kind of fastball is the 2-seam fastball. Let's look at a couple of videos about these pitches.
First pitch is going to be the 4-seam fastball. Works either way for left-handed or right-handed. The reason it's called the four-seam fastball is that you have four seams cutting through the air, okay? The way you hold the pitch is you're going to have two fingers crossing over two of the seams. And as you release that pitch, you're going to have the ball cut through the air. You're going to get a little raise on the ball, a little rise from the air cutting through, and that's what gives it its bite. The four-seam fastball. This is the two-seam fastball. Kind of like the sister of the four-seam fastball. The four-seam fastball is literally going to go straight down the pipe. For the two-seam, you're going to hold it, cradling the two sides of the seams. It's going to go through the air and only cut through two seams as it's going through the air. What this does is that it gives a little drag alongside the ball. So for a left-hander, that ball is going to cut across a little bit to the left-hand side. As a right-hander, the ball is going to go straight down and cut to the right a little bit.
And now, one more just to add to the confusion.
So a running fastball is basically a fastball that tails. People will basically say if the fastball is running arm side, so if you're left-handed, if the ball goes right to left, or if you're right-handed, if the ball's traveling right or left to right, that would be considered a running fastball. Anything from a right-hander's perspective that goes right to left, or from a left-hander's perspective that goes left to right, would be profiled more as a cutter as opposed to a running fastball or a sinker. And then some people will use different terminology, two-seam fastball, running fastball, sinker, different terminologies for the ball that runs towards your arm side. So if you're lefty, it's going to go towards the left. If you're right-handed, it's going to go towards the right, so your arm side. So a typical grip that people will use for a running fastball will be the two-seam grip. And a two-seam grip, I did talk about it yesterday a little bit, but a two-seam grip is pretty standard. I'm basically going to go, let's see if you guys can see this, go up against the two horseshoes here and right there. Go right on top of the seam. Some guys will play around with it. Some guys will stagger their fingers this way or that way. I threw mine a little bit wide and on each side of the seam there. But
This clip had some good information, but mostly it was nonsense. The moral of that, pitching coaches are not good at physics. So let's try to cut through the malarkey. The only difference between a four-seam and a two-seam is a slight tilt to the angle of the spin axis. The same is true for a cutter or cut fastball, which is tilted the other way. The tilt to the spin can be achieved by grip and finger pressure or by arm angle. Wow, that's enough for this week. Here at Assisted Living, the building looks about the same. There are some missing trees. There's more prep going on the roadway, and you can see there on the left there are forms going up for the sidewalk. There's still some drainage issues, and there are still some temporary pipes running various places. We're coming up on the lobby area, and it also looks about the same as usual, so we're going to skip over to the back side and try and take a look at something new. Here on the back or the north side, we again get flat light so we can see more, and we're actually looking down a little bit further, and you can see that there's a new sidewalk there toward the left end, and also toward the right end you can see that they're recontouring things a little bit. Now as we come down to the west end, we'll take a look back and we can get a much better view of the courtyard. And looking at the west end, we can see it's still yellow over the Solaria area there. And finally, a last long look down the line.